Volcanic ash has caused the worst disruption in air travel.
It has stranded millions of people and cost companies more than $1 billion in losses. It's an important...
On April 14, 2010, a massive volcano in the Eyjafjallajökull Glacier region of southern Iceland erupted with such a destructive force, it not only shook various regions of Iceland, but the whole world. The ash plume that ejected from the volcano's crater with molten rocks almost as big as a school bus reached altitudes of over 5 miles or over 30,000 feet in the atmosphere, the altitude at which most of the commercial jets cruise. And this eruption sent a massive panic shockwave throughout the aviation industry that disrupted air travel and caused millions of dollars in losses for weeks. Despite such a panic and huge economic losses, something extraordinary happened in Iceland. With the eruption of Eyjafjallajökull Glacier volcano, thousands of people started to flood into Iceland instead of running for their lives. You see, volcanic eruptions are one of the most beautiful natural events to witness, and for the majority of people, it is once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And this is exactly what happened in Iceland. This particular volcano was active all the way from April 2010 through June, which opened a 3-month window for tourists to witness the event. In the following weeks after the initial eruption, as the ash plume settled and it was safe to resume European airspace, hundreds and thousands of tourists started to fly into Iceland. And this chart is the evidence of Iceland's tourism, which represents the exponential growth in the sector, especially after the Eyjafjallajökull eruption. However, Iceland's tourism did not literally explode just because Mother Nature decided to do so. It was something nobody thought would happen, but it did. The 2008 financial crisis.
The global financial meltdown comes to Iceland.
Iceland's economy entered an apparent death spiral.
Our primary concern is the sustainability of the banking system, as well as the best interest of the Icelandic people.
You see, Iceland, a small island nation with a traditionally modest tourist industry and a reliance on fishing, was hit hard by the 2008 financial crisis. Within a few weeks, the Icelandic krona plummeted as Icelandic banks defaulted on their short-term debt, thrusting the country into the international spotlight in a way it had never experienced before. Criticism in the international media about the country's financial situation, coupled with a global drop in leisure travel, led to a negative growth rate in foreign visitor arrivals in Iceland in 2009. All hope seemed to be lost. Then, in April of the following year, this happened. The explosion was so massive that the ash plumes with abrasive glass particles shot thousands of feet in the air, forcing about 20 countries to close their airspace to commercial jet traffic, which affected approximately 10 million travelers, with hundreds and thousands of passengers stranded at airport terminals. This disruption reached such cosmic proportions that the airline industry was losing millions of dollars every single day, and such a large magnitude of airspace was never completely shut since the Second World War. Iceland was literally shaken by the forces of nature. And this was a double whammy for Iceland and its already plummeted economy. But with the sheer resilience and determination to protect Iceland, its government did this. The Icelandic government, still reeling from the financial crisis, turned to UK consulting firm Brooklyn Brothers to help mitigate the impact of the negative media coverage. Brooklyn Brothers' initial analysis found that negative sentiment towards Iceland in key tourist markets rose from 19% to 72% in just 7 days following the eruption. And tourist numbers plunged by 30% 3 weeks after the eruption, and the decline continued into May. Based on this data, the Icelandic government predicted a 22% drop in tourist volumes, equating to a £180 million shortfall in revenue. Despite the bleak outlook, Brooklyn Brothers and the Icelandic government saw an opportunity to turn things around by using social media to their advantage. To streamline their efforts, the government consolidated the Trade Council of Iceland, Invest in Iceland, and the marketing efforts of the Icelandic Tourist Board into a single organization, Promote Iceland. And it worked. Also, one major source of hope was the volume of positive reviews from tourists who had visited the country before. The newly created Tourism Board estimated that more than 60% of tourists who had spent time in Iceland would be happy to return and would recommend it to others. And the key was then to create a brand for the country and present it to the world that doesn't feel like a traditional ad campaign, but has a very homely and welcoming organic feel to it. Therefore, to create this campaign, the government, in collaboration with the marketing firm, did not just hire a bunch of actors, but encouraged the entire population of the island to stop what they were doing for 60 minutes in June 2010 for Iceland Hour and post whatever positive messages, pictures, or videos they wanted about their homeland. And surprisingly, within a day of launching the campaign, 1/3 of the population of 318,000, including the Prime Minister, had participated. Engagement in terms of sharing and posting activity reached millions. In the coming months, the campaign just snowballed, leading to a completely changed international media standpoint towards Iceland. Positive reviews shot up more than 80%, and negative reviews dropped unbelievably below 5%. In the following months after the eruption, the tourist count simply exploded, bringing in additional £138 million for the country. But the question is, volcanoes are all over the world. So what's so special about Icelandic volcanoes that make it so attractive to tourists? The answer is its perpetual nature and Iceland's geographical position. You see, Iceland is a Nordic island country which is located between the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans and sits right on top of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the point at which North American and Eurasian tectonic plates meet, which means the western part of Iceland is in the North American continent and the eastern part is in the European continent. And because of such positioning, the fault line that cuts Iceland in half is super active as magma flows out of the continental rift. And this makes Iceland volcanoes erupt frequently over and over. On average, Iceland experiences a volcanic event every 4 years. This gives ample opportunity to nature lovers and tourists to witness volcanic activity in Iceland. Even though Iceland is not the most volcanically active country, the type of eruption in Iceland is what makes it unique. Since the country sits on the continental rift, which has enough vents for the high-pressure magma to dissipate, most of the eruptions in Iceland are not as explosive as compared to other places. This allows less viscous lava to spew out slowly and flow out like a river. And the mountainous landscape, black lava fields, and glacier form a unique interplay between rocks, ice, and fire. So in a sense, what could have been interpreted as a disaster for Iceland's economy turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Because in contrast, natural disasters in other parts of the world have significantly hindered tourism demand with repercussions lasting for decades after the event took place. So the lesson that could be learned from Iceland is, to survive an economic crisis, follow it up with a well-documented natural disaster. This is Stories Across, and thank you for watching.